Today we're going to demonstrate how to use the RISA-Tekla link. The RISA-Tekla link is a link between Tekla Structures and RISA-Connection that allows Tekla Structures users to design their connections within their Tekla Structures model by running RISA-Connection as part of this link. So typically in your Tekla Structures model, you're doing all of your detailing, but you weren't able to get design code checks for these connections. And now with this new RISA-Tekla link, you're able to do the connections both for the detailing side and check to see if they work for the design code check sides. So in this model, we have a number of different connection types here. You can see we have some end plate connections here, some shear plate connections over here, some clip angle connections over here, and then we have some flange plate moment connections within the model. Now, entering connections within your Tekla Structures model is just as you've always done it. You're using the different macros that are available within Tekla Structures. But the one thing that you do want to know is you need to be able to tell RISA-Connection what the forces are for your connection. So within each connection macro, you'll see there's a design tab. And on that design tab, they have an option to enter the loads. So you want to be sure that you're entering your loads down here in this section here. So for this end plate connection, I have 40 kips of shear and 10 kips of tension. And I can look at the same thing, let's say, for my flange plate moment connection. So if I go over here, I can go to the design type, and I can actually see all of the forces that I've entered in for this connection as well. So once you've installed the RISA-Tekla link, you're going to get an extra toolbar within your Tekla Structures model. So you can see over here that there's this toolbar, and it is the RISA link toolbar. Now, as I mentioned, this is a link between Tekla Structures and RISA-Connection. It is free. There's no cost for it. So if you own RISA-Connection and you own Tekla Structures, I'd encourage you to download and install this link so that you can see the connectivity between the two programs. Once you do, you'll see this little toolbar here. Once you've gone through and established all of your connections within your model, you've entered in the forces that you want, then you can go ahead over here and click the Solve button. And what this is going to do is it's going to read all of your Tekla Structures connections, and it's going to transfer them into RISA-Connection to take a look at the design. So when I look at this within, this is RISA-Connection that it just opened, I can see that it has those 4 types that I wanted, right? My shear tab, end plate, clip angle, and my flange plate moment. And that it has, this one has about 3 to 4 connections within each type. So we call this the project, right, which would be the entire group of all of these different connection types. Then we have our individual groups, which would be the individual types of connections. And then we have the individual connections within that group. So you'll notice next to each of these connections right now it says NA because we haven't run a design code check on them yet. So if we go over here to our options for solving, I'm going to solve the entire project because I want to see what passes and what fails. So it looks like right away my flange plate moment connections and my clip angle connections pass, but my end plate and my shear tab connections don't pass. So I need to figure out what is going on with these connections. So in order to do that, I'm going to look at an individual connection here. And this is one of my, my end plate connections. I'm going to go ahead and take a look at the reports. Now right here I'm looking at this in a 3D view. We also have some 2D views as well where you can look at it from the side or the front. The thing I really like about the views within RISA-Connection is that you have the ability to change anything just by clicking on that portion. So let's say I wanted to go in and change the bolts. I can go ahead and click on the bolts. It takes me right over here. It says Girder Bolts. They're 3/4 of an inch at 3-inch spacing. I have 2 bolts per row with 1 row on each side. Let's say I wanted to change a dimension. I could go ahead in here and just click on the dimension, type in what I want to do, and change it. So it's really nice. You could do that in the 3D or in the 2D view. So I can go over here and take a look at the weld or the bolts or whatever I want to look at. So let's go ahead and look at our reports here and see what's passing and failing. And it looks like our beam weld strength is what's failing here. And it looks like it's just not enough of a beam of a weld. So let's try increasing that weld. So right now I'm going to increase it to 3. And I'm going to rerun that connection, just that connection there. And it's saying it's still failing. So I either need to, change the weld type, or I need to go ahead and make it a bigger weld. So if I were to make it into a 4/16, which would be 1/4 inch, and then run it again, we're just going to run this connection. I can see actually it's still failing. So I need to increase, maybe I need to increase the length of the weld. So in that case, maybe I would need to increase my plate size. So we can try a bunch of different options to get that. So let's increase the spacing between our bolts to maybe 4 inches. and then run that connection again. That's just going to give us a little bit longer of a connection there, or a weld there. So now I can see that made it pass. Now, I could go through and go to these other individual connections, but since they're almost identical, I'm going to guess they're all failing for the same thing. Now, the nice thing about RISA-Connection is that you don't have to go in and, let's say I had 20 connections in this group. I can go ahead and make the change just to the group, and it'll change everything within the group rather than having to go into those 20 individual connections. So I'm going to look at my end plate connection here, and I'm going to go ahead and change those girder bolts. And I want to change the spacing to be 4 inches for all of them. And I want to change that beam weld to be 1/4 inch for all of them. And then I'm going to rerun that entire group, and I can see that they all pass. So it's a really quick way to change things. Now I can go ahead and do the same thing down here. If I take a look at my my girder to beam shear tab, I have geometry restrictions at the beam, so it looks like my minimum edge distance is failing. I have some weld limitations here, so I have some other things that are failing as far as welds go. The flexural rupture, buckling, yield, I have a number of things that are bolt bearing on beams. So, I have a number of different things that could fail. So first I know I'm probably going to want to increase the number of bolts because my bolt bearing is failing, and I would guess that probably has something to do with these plate failures as well. So I'm going to go back into my 2D view, and I'm just going to change the number of bolts from 2 to 3 and see if that fixes a number of my problems and rerun that connection. So it's still failing, but let's look. It made a bunch of them pass, but my bolt shear is still failing. So I might need to maybe pick a bigger bolt size. So maybe let's say I want to use a 7/8 inch bolt. And if I rerun that connection again, okay, it's got everything failing except I've got my beam block shear. So you're going to have to kind of go back and see really what is, what you need to change for your model. And so you can do that for a number of different things. For the purpose of this video, I'm just going to leave these as failing because I want some to fail and some to pass, just so that I can show you, how it works. So I'm going to send this back to Tekla. So I'm going to export these connection results back to Tekla. And it's going to take that into my Tekla Structures model. And if I go back on over into my Tekla Structures model, I'm going to go ahead and it's going to bring in the results. So I'm going to say I want to show those connection results within my Tekla Structures model. So I'm going to click on this results button. It's basically going to bring in all of those results, all those changes that I made. So if you remember right, I changed the spacing on some of those connections, on those end plate connections. I changed the number of bolts on my my shear tab connection. And all of a sudden now, if I just scroll in over here, I just want to show you this here. I can actually see that I have a 3-bolt connection there, right? Before it was 2, so I changed that particular one to be 3. And if I scroll in over here, I can see that the spacing here is now 4 inches instead of the previous 3. So it's very easy to take a look and see what those individual changes are on your model. So let's go ahead and take a look at those results for our link. So it brings up this dialog box here, and I'm just going to expand this to be able to show it a little bit more. And it's going to show all of the results that I showed there. So I'm just going to expand everything so you can see it. So I can see that my shear tab is still failing, which we want to show, but all the rest of them are passing. And if I click on any individual one, and I'm actually going to move this model up a smidge so we can see the options here. As I click on them here, so if I wanted to say, look at, let's say, that shear tab connection, the first one, you'll notice as I highlight it in my results page here, it's actually highlighting it over here in my model as well. So it's very easy to tell, which connections are which. So I could do the same thing. You'll notice that my end plate connection, it's highlighting my end plate connection there. As I go through these, it's going to highlight those different connections. So it's very easy to kind of map them back to which connections they are in your structure. And it is going to give you a general overview of whether they pass or fail. Now, if you want to look at the individual calculations, these limit state checks, and actually what equation numbers they're using and everything, you will have to look at that within RISA-Connection, as this is just giving you kind of an overview of the design results. But that is a general overview of the RISA-Tekla link. If you have any questions, feel free to email us at support@risa.com. Thank you.